Hello, I'm Alexander Hamilton, a High Federalist for the betterment of the United States of America. With the November election soon approaching, I find it necessary to state my opinions on a myriad of subjects. There are certain things that I have noticed that I feel need to be addressed, and we cannot continue on without dealing with them. The subjects on which I must express my concerns and appraisals are as follows. The structure of our government is in question, and the ideas of certain men have the potential to throw us into an even worse dilemma. Certain men believe that the power of rule should solely rest in the average man, despite the shortcomings of the population as a whole. I find that the average plebeian does not possess the required intellect to make informed and proper decisions for the future of the nation. Therefore, they are only fit to play a secondary role in the government process due to their instability. As the wealthy gentry already possess large sums of money, they will maintain disinterest within the government, seeing as they have nothing more substantial to gain financially. Those without such financial security will surely steer the government down a path full of interest. No government so focused on interest can possibly last, and any government that does will not last long. Why should the American people willingly commit to a government with such obvious flaws and fallacies? That is exactly what certain men are asking you to do. On the topic of money, our nation has built up a large national debt over the past few years without any specific plan on how to handle it. If not dealt with soon, this mounting sum of debt will take over the fate of our country. We have estimated the national debt to be $20 million. In order to make up for this gross lack of funding, I suggest that the states split the debt evenly amongst themselves. This will divide the large amount of debt into manageable chunks that will be easier to handle and bring us closer as a nation. If we have a national debt that is not excessive, it will serve as a blessing to our country and thus the individual people within it. A national debt means that all public creditors will have uniform interest rates, which will then lead them to uniting in support of the fiscal arrangements of the government. This is quite akin to the British system, and I believe, as do many others, that the British possess the best model for dealing with debt in the world. Anyone who would be willing to believe otherwise is a complete and utter fool. Likewise, anyone who believes that the states ought to possess more power than the federal government is surely being deceived. It is simply logical to acknowledge that, for the strength and unity of our country, we need a firm and powerful central government. A group of smaller, weaker state governments is nothing more than a random assortment of individual entities as opposed to a singular nation. State governments are not to be entirely condemned as long as they are submitted under the power of the federal government. As soon as these smaller state governments begin to overstep their power, they are no longer conducive to the government as a whole. As concerning Jay's treaty, the main grievance which I hold is that the ignorance of the people which are willing to observe with the treaty's real meaning. Too quick were many Americans to pass prejudgments because of their impressions they formed of it at a first glance. For one, many people were quick to believe that the treaty showed contempt towards the French, who were the allies of many American citizens. On top of this, the terms of Jay's treaties favored greatly the interests of Great Britain, causing some to question if this was the British asserting their power over the United States. While the current administration under Adams has done a modest job, they have not been perfect. President Adams has shown no backbone in regards to the French, and has allowed an attack on American property and American lives with no punishment and no retaliation. This should cause outrage in the hearts and minds of American citizens. Without his complete and total insolence for the reputation of the nation, the quasi-war may have been prevented. Therefore, Adams is not without fault in the current state of our nation. In effect, these important points for which I have just stated my opinion about demand careful and consideration when forming any beliefs about the soon approaching presidential election. Do you want a president who promotes instability and a weak, vulnerable Republican government? Jefferson believes that the government should be run by the common people. Our national debt should be handled differently, and that the states should possess more power. He is wrong on every single front. If you are planning on voting for Jefferson in this upcoming election, I suggest that you take a step back and reassess your viewpoint, as it will be the worst decision you will ever make. A belief in Jefferson is a belief in a surely doomed government. Thank you.